Hello, everybody.
Yeah, I know.
I know people are still coming through. Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see you here in your face. This is going to be a very in your face, very high energy session. We have an hour with three terrific women. We're very excited to have the panel with us today. Unfortunately, Tarek is unavailable tonight, so he is an apology. So I'm sorry that he's not on the call tonight. What I'd like to do first up is actually acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nation. That's the land in which we are if we were in Melbourne at the Stone and Chalk Hub. I'm going to acknowledge the people of the Dja Dja Wurrung. That's the land in which I am physically at in the Macedon Ranges. And I'd like to recognise and pay respect to their elders, past, present and future. So welcome. Great to see everyone. We have a terrific panel. I'd like to welcome you to Stone and Chalk. So Stone and Chalk are the start hub for startup and scale-ups around the country. We've got 850 plus residents around the country in Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide. We provide all the wraparound service for the startups to develop their skills in future capital funding, their talent. We have the founder circles where we have this great peer support. So Stone and Chalk are working, and we're funded by Launch Victoria in the talent program, which is in fact Pivot. And it's a fantastic free program that is there for people who want to upskill and prepare themselves to work in a startup environment. So we have several pillars to the program. We have a really neat Startup Academy, which you can do 12 modules. It's self-paced, very generated by founders and startups. So we've got excellent case studies to reference throughout the program. We've got a series of events and workshops. We had a great workshop about skills mapping yesterday that was, really engaging and basically looking at your current skills and how they transfer to a startup or a scale-up environment. We have a fantastic talent program called Connect, which we got off the ground a couple of months ago, and that's going great guns. We've actually got middle to high-level executives from corporate who are pivoting to opportunities within a startup or a scale-up. So that's going really well. And we're particularly excited. We're about to launch our Pivot Jobs platform. So this is where any of you who are on the call who are looking at job opportunities within the startup sector, this is where you go. It's like a Seek meets Facebook or LinkedIn. You build your profile, you get matched, it's all algorithm tested and that sort of thing. And it's going to be a very exciting platform to put all your details on. So now we'll get cracking in your face. Woo! We have Lisa Tay, who is the founder of Cody Agency and co-founder of Listnik. We have Olivia Grandjean-Thompson, who is the head of communications, media and events at Stone and Chalk. So she works with me. She's actually my boss, and also for Oz Cyber. We also have Gabrielle Salter. She's the GM of Marketing Malfa and has just given us an insight into what she does. You'll hear more about that shortly. Truly fascinating how many different groups she's involved in, and yeah, really interesting. Let's get cracking, shall we? We're going to start off with a fast-paced series of questions. So the first question I have is, explain your business and whether or not your business is in people's faces. Now, this is just a quick 1-minute response. And Lisa, this goes to you first.
I got 1 minute. I'm the biggest waffler. Okay, I want to keep it to a minute. So I guess 2 businesses that I run at the moment would be Cody Agency, which is a digital marketing company, and Listnik, which is a mentoring platform that connects mentors with mentees globally. They are definitely both in your face because I am all over social media talking about them. My teams are on social media talking about them. And as a business, well, both of them, they both have very active social media platforms. So 100% yes, both are in your face.
They are, and I know them well, and I see them all the time. So fantastic. Thank you so much. Olivia, 1 minute, off you go.
Great. We've got a bit of a head start because Abby has already introduced a Stone and Chalk. So that's great. I would definitely say that we are in your face. I think we're well known as a leading innovation hub. We have some great hubs in Adelaide, Melbourne, and Sydney. And we're really just known as a fun, hardworking, thriving community that's helping to build founders and their businesses.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, Gabrielle, is your business in your face?
Yeah, so ours is a little bit different. So I'd say Malfa, probably not in your face. We're an investment company and a lot of people haven't heard of us, but you've probably heard of the brands that we own in Australia. So Hayman Island, Intercontinental Sydney, Intercontinental Sanctuary Cove, Vera Wang, Imagine Winery in the Hunter Valley, Brimbank Shopping Centre down in Melbourne. So we operate across many different brands. Now, I think in the markets that they individually play in, yes, they're in your face, but Malfa as a brand, no.
Fantastic. And throughout tonight, we'll discuss what it means to be in your face and then what it means, is that a good or bad thing? So that's going to be fleshed out. So it's not a mandatory thing to be on the panel or in this discussion, so don't feel bad about that. All right, the next question is to each of you as well. And Gabrielle, while you're on screen, we'll talk to you first.
Yep.
And this is a really hard one, but it's a really fascinating one. And what I'd love is people in the call, in the chat, tell us your favourite brand. And I'm not going to give you any criteria, just off the top of your head, your favourite brand, what is it?
Okay, at the moment, because I have a lot, at the moment, it's called the Daily Oz. It's actually, it was a startup from about 2 years ago. It's a media company. On Instagram, it's a daily email newsletter and a daily podcast. It's pretty much a factual, balanced news feed that is aimed at millennial. I can claim to be a millennial, I'm not, but I just think it's one of the most fantastic brands out there that have really captured the COVID environment and taken advantage of it. So,
can I just say that one of the founders, when I ran for politics last year, one of the founders was my campaign manager, Zara, and she's—
No way.
Yeah.
I met with them last week.
Oh, they're incredible.
They were fantastic. They're a brand I've stalked down because I just think they're so fantastic and there's so many opportunities to work with brands like that. So
I'll let her know.
Lisa, what's your favourite brand?
Okay, this is like a controversial one because I don't know if it's like necessarily a favourite, but I would say that I think what he's done is amazing with the brand, and it's Kanye.
Oh.
So I wouldn't say like he's like my favorite, but I think he, as a disruptor, he's incredible. So I look at his music, every album sounds different. And that's really hard as an artist because if you look at most of the really popular artists these days, they're pushing out the same music. So it's like every album, it's just pretty much like what they released before, just a few different songs. Whereas I feel like with him, even with his listening parties, like he built up so much hype. Selling, I don't know, buckets of fried chicken for $60 or something. It's like insane. And I just love, I love his confidence. Like, imagine just being able to say, yeah, I can run for the president of the United States of America. But also he's like a true creative. I feel like he straddles fashion, he straddles music, he straddles art. So yeah, I'd say that, is he my favorite person in the world? Definitely not. But as a brand, he really knows how to capture people's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody, Lamia in the chat, agrees with you. Excellent. Now, Olivia, your favourite brand?
Yeah, this was a tough one. For me, it's actually Airbnb. So I have been an avid traveler for most of my life. I would say I'd spent 2 or 3 months a year traveling until obviously COVID hit. And so I was one of the early adopters of Airbnb. And in that way, it was back in the day when you could get a houseboat or a tree house for $50 a night and you only had to book one night. Obviously, that's changed now. But their approach to accommodation sharing, and what started as an idea where you had to bring a blow-up bed, put it in someone's room, then you could rent it out, has been transformed in terms of what they've done. And they did a rebrand. I think it was in about 2013, 2014. And they came up with this new slogan, which I just thought was brilliant. And they elevated their brand from being simply a brand to what I call like a super brand, right? And it was belong anywhere. And it really represented, and they to come up with that, they actually went out and they traveled around the world to all of their different offices. I think they have about 13 of them. And they asked their staff and their hosts and anybody who participated in their brand and what they do as a business to help them design that concept. And I think that the little icon they came up with, I think they gave it a name. It's really cute. I think think it's called Bello. And it really represents, I think it was like people, places, love, and Airbnb. And when you put them all together, you get Bello. And I think it's interesting to see a brand go from a kind of a concept to a name to simply an icon. And that's awesome. And I just always admired their brand strategy, and to be able to rebrand and make that human element of what Airbnb is all about is amazing.
I think what's interesting about Airbnb, I read an article once that said it's the most successful company in the world to not own a single asset.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, yeah.
And there was also a lot of companies in the market at the time that were very similar to them. So I think it was actually born out of competition, and they had to be unique, which actually elevated them.
And we all love them. We all use them. I own two. Fantastic. All right. This quote is from a recent report from Deloitte's Global Marketing Trends. And it reports that a coherent, authentic purpose acts as a strong differentiation from competition. It inspires customer loyalty and employee satisfaction. It strengthens brand values and creates the base for long-term sustainable brand development. So this is again to everybody on the call who's on the panel. When it comes to creating an authentic brand, why do you think that is so important? It's talked about a lot, particularly in the last 5 years. And some people say it's almost been used to death, but people talking about authenticity is really, it resonates with people. It's important to people. Why is that in your marketing strategy? Why do you need to? Who wants to tackle that one first? Gabrielle, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm happy to go. Yeah. Look, I think about being authentic, and look, I'm one of the believers that's probably been thrown around a little bit too much. And I don't like quite often when brands say, oh, one of my key pillars is that I'm authentic. What is authentic to you? What makes you authentic? I think what you can do in this market is don't try and be everything to everyone. Find out where your niche is in the market. I know, like we're talking digital here, people say you've got to be on every social media platform. Well, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to. For a lot of the brands that we work with, LinkedIn is our only platform that we operate on. And then for other brands, we're just starting to launch on TikTok, and we've stopped doing Facebook for them. So I think being authentic to who your customer is, who you're speaking to, is probably the best way of showing authenticity.
Absolutely. Lisa, I know you'd like to chime in here. This is something you feel particularly passionate about. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So I would say consumers are so smart these days. So they can tell when something's not authentic. And as someone in marketing, I feel like it's so important that we really understand the brands and, like Gabrielle said, who they're trying to reach, because you really need to tailor your message to not only the right channel, but to the right people that you're trying to resonate with. And I guess on the topic of authenticity, I would say that I started my career as a tax lawyer. Please don't judge me, it's really boring. And in the corporate world. And I was very nervous to actually post any content on LinkedIn, because I thought that you had to be really professional, super corporate. You can't laugh, you can't have any fun. And so I joined, show my age now, I think I joined the workforce in 2007, and I only started getting active on LinkedIn in 2019. So it took me a really long time to actually put myself out there. And when I did, I just thought, you know what, stuff it, I'm just going to be authentic. I'm going to be me. I'm immature at times. I, like to have a bit of fun. I wanted to be genuine and authentic about my challenges with, say, like mental health and things like that. And it's been incredible, because you find these people that really resonate with you. It's almost like you find your tribe and you find your community just by being authentic. Whereas if I was like not myself, then the people that I would attract wouldn't actually really like me for me. So I think that personally I've experienced that absolute importance of being authentic, and I've just seen firsthand how powerful it can be when you actually are true to yourself.
That's so true. And do you find that tribe you're talking about, you're actually producing more dynamic projects and outcomes with them as well?
Oh, absolutely. Even like people that reach out to me to work with us, and they're interested in working with us, I'm like, I know why you reach out to me. You've got a very similar sense of humor. You don't take life too seriously. You work really hard. You've got an amazing work ethic, but I can see that you like to have a bit of fun as well. So I would say that it's honestly super humbling, I guess, even because sometimes when I just post things like that I might have achieved or just anything really, like even I'm having a bad day, like the warmth you feel from people that you don't even know is actually so incredible. And I honestly sometimes just feel like, I don't know, it's like mind-blowing to think that these strange, like really effectively they're strangers, but they somehow feel connected to you. And that's because I've been as authentic as I can be without sitting at home in my PJs doing content on LinkedIn with no makeup on in bed eating pizza. I don't think anyone wants to see that, but I do feel like, yeah, there's a lot to be said for being authentic.
And Olivia, I'm really curious because Olivia's been ensconced in cybersecurity really for the last couple of years. Authenticity is absolutely integral to cyber and what you've been doing. So what's your take on the importance of it?
I think in terms of personal authenticity, it's really important that you have values that you can go back to. But I think generally to be authentic is to build trust with your audience. And that's really important, that they trust you, that they feel that you are genuine in what you do and what you like and the way that you speak. I think it's also really important to be authentic is you see a lot of organizations and they make a mistake, right? How do they own that mistake in terms of, do they just brush it under the carpet, or do you actually see these, and the ones that we respect more, actually, the ones that we build more trust with and are more believable next time are the companies that do clean and say, look, we made a mistake. In all honesty, this is what happened and this is what we did to rectify it. But that actually means that they're more authentic and we start to relate to them a little bit more. So I think that's really important to build trust, but also to come forth if you do have a mistake for your own reputation and authenticity.
Yeah, very definitely. Thank you for that. That's a really insightful response to the question. Now, I'm just going to ask a more technical question of all of you. And Liv, you might want to tackle this one first, and this will be really interesting for the people on the call who are marketers themselves. You use multiple channels. We use multiple channels to boost our marketing. Why do we do it?
We do that because your target audience are not all the same. They're not clones of each other. So when we break down our audience, people like to receive information in different ways through different channels at different times, right? Some people love to get information in the morning. They're scrolling through their phone, reading the news, and that's how they like to get it. Other people like to get it on the train when we could catch trains late at night, that kind of thing. So it's really important that we don't rely on just one channel to get to them. And that's why we layer our campaigns. So we might use socials, we might do a podcast, a newsletter, TV advertising, because we can't just rely on that one channel anymore to reach people.
And Gabrielle, you've touched on it with the fact that depending on your client, depends on their market segment, depends so on and so forth. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I agree with Olivia. You want to do campaigns and channels that complement one another and that probably touch a different audience or a different part of your target market at different stages. There's so many free tools out there. This is the thing, I think people think that they have to spend significant amounts of money in digital marketing or marketing in general. We've worked in businesses where they've come to me and said, oh, look, my marketing budget's $200. And we can create a campaign around that. And then you've got businesses that are coming and saying that, look, we've got $1 million to spend. What are we going to do? And yeah, email marketing, the things that you can do in email marketing now, the customer journeys, the automation that you can do, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go back even, 15 years when it would cost $12,000 to have a website. Now people can set up something with WordPress and have a shopping cart in it. And Lisa, I'd love to know your take on this, because obviously you use multiple channels. You actually advise a lot of clients as well. What's your advice to them? Because how do you audit them before you get to that point?
Definitely when we are advising what channels to be on, obviously budget's a consideration, but we really look at firstly audience. So where are your audience sitting? So what demographic, maybe even gender, generally age, location, things like that. And then we look at what the algorithm's doing. So for example, Instagram and Facebook have a very little organic reach, which is very annoying. If you're looking to get active on those, Reels is fantastic for Instagram. They're really trying to compete with TikTok, so get all over Reels. Facebook are about to launch Reels as well, which is exciting. And then LinkedIn, there is organic reach left still, which is fantastic. They just launched boosting for business pages because there is absolutely no reach on business pages for LinkedIn, which has been a big frustration for a lot of brands. And then TikTok, there is crazy organic reach on TikTok. It's like insane. Like you can post something. I think I posted a video and I had 20 followers and at the time, and it's been seen by just under 500,000 people. And it was a really bad video of me trying to lip sync. So I'm really disappointed that out of all the videos that went viral, it was that terrible one. But that's okay. That's just the part and parcel of testing social media algorithms. But a big part of my role at Cody and Listening is BD and sales. So what we know is consumers are bombarded with content from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed. So it takes around 8 to 20 touch points with a brand to make a sale. So I think a lot of brands are too worried about, am I, posting too much content? Am I on too many channels? Am I in people's faces too much? It's like, no, you actually need to be, unless you're someone like me, who's like a real impulse shopper, who might see something and like, yeah, I'll buy that because I definitely need a lamp that makes it look like a sunset in my room. I'm really bad at that, unfortunately. I'm like prime target for marketing, but really as consumers, like we need to be exposed to a brand multiple times before we actually click that add to cart and purchase button. So the more channels that you can be on, the more likely you're going to actually get cut through and make that sale.
Now, while you're still on screen for everybody, the next question is about, I thought of you actually when Olivia and I went through these questions, personal brand. So you've touched on it a bit, and I know you do your daily, and you are very open and very authentic in what you share. And I think a couple of times I've watched your little reel and thought, oh my God, and it really resonated at a particular time just because you were so open about certain things. And I'll let people, they can start listening. I'm sure there's a few people who've already shared that they really enjoy what you share. So for someone who is perhaps new to marketing or wants to really develop their profile as a marketer, but they're a bit shy, what do you say to them about personal brand? Like what's some of the first steps to really build your personal brand, particularly in this space where there are so many channels, there's so many platforms? What would be your pearls of wisdom, Lisa?
I could literally talk about this topic for 5 hours, but I'm not going to because people probably want to have dinner. But I personally love the topic of personal brand. As I mentioned before, I actually didn't really even exist in the business world until 2019 when I started getting active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been the most incredible platform for me. I had no idea what I was doing when I first started. I was actually quite nervous because I just started doing videos on my phone and I was like, this is like really unprofessional. I just got on selfie mode. I bought this cheap ass tripod and I'm just trying to face the natural light so I look as young as possible. And then I just had no idea what I was doing and I just started putting out content. And I thought, okay, what am I going to even talk about here? And I talk about this quite a bit because people think of content creation as this big thing. It's like you need a professional videographer, you need like to do a photo shoot. When really, I don't think about content creation. I think about documenting. So think about documenting what you're already doing in your day. So I did a presentation on LinkedIn earlier today, and I said to them, hopefully you learned something from this call, but think about the top 3 things you learned from the session, and that can be posted on LinkedIn. So sharing about what you've learned from the platform, what you've learned from the session. So you don't need to go out and create something special. It's just documenting what you're already learning. So if you receive a great piece of advice, if it helped you, it's most likely going to help someone else. So post it. If you've given a great piece of advice that's helped someone, it's probably going to help someone else in your network. So share that. So I would say that if you want to build your personal brand as a thought leader, start getting active and sharing content. I think one of the challenges is caring about what people think. And I have no doubt that there are people out there who don't like my content at all and find me probably very irritating, but I don't focus on those people. And what actually got me posting was that I thought if this could help one person, then it's worth me doing a video. It's worth me doing a post. And actually, I'm an introvert by nature. No one believes me because they're like, but you're all over LinkedIn. And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to the back of my phone. And the only other person in the room is my dog. And she's like really annoyed because she's like, why are you always talking to your phone? And I'm trying to have a nap. I feel like as an introvert, it was pretty scary putting yourself out there. But as I mentioned, the benefits and the opportunities that you all of a sudden start to get considered for is amazing. So definitely do that. I would say if you're looking to build your personal brand on LinkedIn as well, reach out and start connecting with people on LinkedIn. People always go, oh, I don't know them. Is that awkward to send a connection request? And I always say, if you're going to a networking event, and say you didn't know anyone, would you just stand in the corner and not talk to anyone? No, you'd walk up and introduce yourself and say, I'm Lisa, etc., etc. And that's the LinkedIn version, is just sending a connection request. Now you can actually send a request with a message in it if you want to, but I would say that I sometimes feel that it's a bit salesy. So I usually just send a connection request and then hope that person accepts. I would say that if you have a profile picture on your LinkedIn that makes you look like a serial killer, no one's going to accept your request. So please make sure you have a good photo. Make sure as well it's appropriate for LinkedIn. This isn't Tinder, so definitely don't have like a toilet selfie. I've seen some of those. I'm like, are you guys right? This is like totally the wrong platform for that. And then make sure as well your profile's optimized. So I'm not going to go too much into detail, but your headline, people underutilize the power of their headline, which is your little one line, like little bio, not bio, it's like your little line under your profile picture. Now, the reason why this is so important is because when you're looking at, say you're posting content or you're going through your feed, you don't see anyone's bio. You don't see any of their past content. What you see is their content that they're posting. You see their photo and you see that line about them. So make sure you really utilize it, and don't just put what your title is and what company you work for. I always say, unless you work for like an Apple, a Tesla, an Amazon, assume no one knows what your company is. So put it in brackets. Like for example, on mine, I've got Cody Agency, digital marketing, listening, connecting mentors, mentees. So that's really underutilized. And I would say that's 100% really important to make sure that people at first glance understand what you do. And your LinkedIn profile, your personal page, is effectively like a website. So treat it as what do you want people to know about you at first glance? What do you want them to contact you about? What's the sort of CTA? What do you want them to feel when they land on your page? So I'm so sorry, I could talk about this all day. I'm going to actually just shut up now because I could keep.
No, that's great. And we actually
as well. I'm fascinated by this, Lisa. And how do you, one of the things I personally struggle with is actually, how do you find the motivation to keep posting content all the time? A lot of people achieve things and then they're like, oh, I'll put it up, but then they never get around to it. What is your tip to help us all do that?
Such a good question.
That's actually a great question, because a lot of people struggle with this. And usually I'll do talks and I'll say, hopefully you're feeling inspired to go out and start posting. Now, I think the thing is you've got to stick to a posting schedule that's realistic and commit to it. So sometimes it even helps if you're just going to put it out there on LinkedIn and say, hey guys, feeling really motivated, I'm going to start posting once a week, because then it's, oh, I need to be held accountable to my LinkedIn audience about that. But something that's really helped me in the past when I felt like, oh, I can't be bothered posting is, and I heard this on a Gary Vaynerchuk podcast recently, he was saying that if you're accountable to yourself, it's really easy to get out of things. If you're accountable to other people, then you don't want to let people down. So I said recently, because I've been trying to get more active on TikTok, I said that to someone from my team, I said, hey, would you do this TikTok challenge with me? Let's both commit to posting some digital marketing content on TikTok, 2 posts this week. And I got to Friday, I was like, I don't want to let her down. So I was like, I want to post. And that really motivated me. But also I think once you start posting, don't feel bad if your post doesn't go viral in 2 seconds. That's very rare. And I think people give up because they're like, no one's seeing this content. I'm like, why am I even doing this? When I first started, no one was seeing my videos. They were really bad. So that's probably a good thing. LinkedIn's actually one of the platforms where you could post a video and have very little followers, but 500 people could see that video, for example, or thousands of people could see that post. So it's quite amazing, the power of the algorithm. But I would say that try and focus on what you want to achieve by posting content, and have that be the driving force whenever you're potentially feeling like, oh, I can't be stuffed. So for example, is it that you want to get new business for your business? Is it that you want to establish yourself as a thought leader? Is it that you want to increase your network? And so focus on that. So every time I'm feeling lazy, I'm like, oh, this one post could change my life. It could be seen by someone who then could potentially message me, and I then get to work with them or work, for them. So I always try and focus on the opportunities, and that sort of gets me out of feeling lazy. Or I focus on the fact that it could help someone's life. And it's funny, Abby, I got a bit emotional actually when you said that, because when you're talking about seeing my content, because so many people have actually messaged me just from seeing my content, and they might have said, hey, I was actually having a really bad day too, and I saw that you posted about that it's okay to have a bad day. Or I spoke about how extroverts could help introverts when they're at networking events. And it's crazy because I just think I'm just posting stuff and I don't even know if anyone's watching or looking at it. And then when people message, I'm like, shit, like this, like you could actually impact someone's day. And that's amazingly powerful. And to have a platform and a voice, like we're so lucky in this country. We can build a platform and have people listen to what we want to share. And that's a responsibility that I don't take lightly. And being on a panel with all women as well, even tonight, like that's incredible for me, because there's so few women that post on LinkedIn. I think we're so critical of ourselves and we judge ourselves so much more than men. And actually, on the topic of Kanye, I saw this post ages ago. It's like someone was talking about wishing women had Kanye level confidence. It's like that guy freaking ran for the bloody president of the United States of America, and women won't even go for a job unless they've got every single criteria met. It's like, this guy wouldn't know the first thing about running a country, and yet he went for the job. So I think as women especially, we really need to have a voice on there, because you can't be what you can't see. And I want women who are coming up in the business world to look at women like us and go, I can be them. I can run my own business. I can be at a senior level in corporate. And I think it's like, we have a responsibility. No pressure, Olivia, but you're obviously, all of you on the panel, incredible women. So I think we do have a role to play in putting ourselves out there and showing that next generation of women that they can do anything they want to.
And on that, just the fact that we're all women at this event, what I'm really interested to explore, because one of the key things of digital marketing is the data and the analytics and the power that gives you to make decisions. Gabrielle touched on that before, and it's absolutely true. It's one of the best things about using all these different platforms, being able to get the analytics of who did what. But beyond the stats, and I'm actually going to direct this one to Gabrielle, because you touched on this before. I'd be really interested to know a little bit more around your process for evaluating your client experience and their client experience. Yep. So the B2B and the B2C, like how do you manage that and the reporting of that? And then how do you use that to determine steps forward with your digital campaigns and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Look, and I think one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given, and it was from my CEO at the time, and he said, if it's not going to generate revenue, stop doing it. And at the time, I thought I had to be on every channel, and I had to be, and this is complete digital, but in newspapers and billboards and on TV, and you couldn't measure results then. And so you were just like taking a stab in the dark. But I think sorry, I've got a dog barking in the background. I just lost my train of thought.
We're just talking about the evaluation, the power of data and analytics, but also, I'm just also curious, do you think women are actually better at doing this? I don't know, a bit controversial.
Oh, it depends. If you look at me and my partner and I say I'm probably better at attention to detail than him. I love the analytical side, but that's different. I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah, and it's a generalization. So
it's a generalization, right. But I think with digital marketing, the amount of data and information that you can pull from it, trend reports, it's absolutely incredible. And we've just introduced a new CRM and EDM system into our business. And we're now doing EDMs we're actually sending it to people based on when they're most active on their Gmail account or their Outlook account. So if we've got a customer that we know that on the train at 5 o'clock at night, that's when they're checking, that's when our automatic EDMs get sent to them. But someone at lunchtime, that's when it's going to them. So the amount of information and the customer profiling that you can do and understand, it's just incredible. With our winery, if you've bought, say, the last 6 purchases have all been white wine, we're not going to communicate to you about red wine or rosé. We know you're a white wine buyer, so let's not waste our time doing that. So you're just going to hear from us about white wine. You can just be so targeted.
Yeah, targeted and finite. Liv, what are your thoughts around this? And also, I'd love to know, with data analytics, when it comes to the Oz cyber side of things, I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts around, because obviously there's sensitivity with data as well, privacy, there's all those factors to consider. So how do you manage that? Yeah.
Absolutely. And so for me, I guess having data and doing data analytics reporting is really an opportunity to test, isn't it? Because we are and I always say to people, if you're going to start doing a new channel, be consistent, do it once a week, but then you set it up for a couple of months, then test it, see if it's working, see what kinds of content is working, and then what is actually resonating with the audience, do more of that, and then stop the other stuff. And so with my staff, we do monthly reporting, we also do board reporting, and that's a really great chance for us to, and it's tedious at the time, I'm not going to lie, but we have all of these amazing things. You can check websites through Google Analytics, you can use any of the social channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, they've got that analytics right there. You can check the status of your ads, who's seen it, the demographics. It really, you get all of this amazing data available to you straight away. So why wouldn't you use it? Really, I think it's critical to any kind of campaign planning, but also it's really important that when you do a digital marketing campaign, that you take the time afterwards to do that kind of measurement and evaluation to see how it went, and then put that into the next campaign that you do.
I was just going to say on that as well, the beauty of digital is you can change it so quickly. So if you get into a campaign, say it's a month-long campaign and you're a week into it and then it's just not getting the results you want, you can actually get in there and change it around and mix it up. You're not stuck with it for that month.
It's not like you can retract things and you can change things.
Yeah, very definitely. Have any of you used, this is completely change of topic because we've only got a short time together, so I'm really curious about this one, and I think some people on the call will be as well. Have any of you used influencers? You have.
Look, we use influencers quite a lot, particularly through our hotel brand. In 2019, we relaunched Hayman Island, so obviously an influencer campaign was there. I think one of our key learnings for this is ask for their reports. Ask for them to provide you with their analytics. Their number of followers does not represent how successful they are. We found that one of the most successful things we've done is worked with micro influencers. So people that might have 5,000 followers, but they're able to tell you exactly who their followers are, and they get engagements of, they could be as high as 60 and 70%, which is unheard of for a lot of influencers. So there's no harm in reaching out to them, asking for their reports. Please do it. Yeah, that's my key learning. But they do, depending on what you're doing, but you do get good results from them. But also the results depends. Are you after brand awareness? Are you after followers? Or are you after sales? So work out what your strategy is first before you commit to doing an influencer campaign.
Absolutely. Does anyone else want to chime in on this? And I'm also curious to know, when it comes to an influencer, obviously if it's product, they get product and they endorse the product and all that sort of thing. Just how curated and scripted all of that is, or does it depend on who the influencer is and all that sort of stuff?
And if I say something, sorry.
Yeah, go for it. I'm sure you've got a lot to say about this topic.
I've got a lot to say about a lot of topics, unfortunately, and this is one of them. So I think a unique position, because I don't want to say I'm an influencer. I have done influencer campaigns in the past. So I've been on both sides. And with Cody Agency, we do influencer campaigns for brands. So we've done work for brands like Uber Eats, L'Oreal, the Just Group, Booktopia. We do a lot of campaigns, and Gabrielle say it's so refreshing to hear that you're wanting to ask for stats, because as an influencer, I've done campaigns in the past and no one's asked about my stats. I'm like, what are you reporting on? So it's actually like quite weird. I'm like, are you guys serious right now? Like it's really strange. So for our campaigns with Cody, we actually get the influencers to screenshot their analytics, and we actually don't work with anyone who's not on a business account, because like you said, Gabrielle, you can have 20,000 followers, but that doesn't mean 20,000 people are going to see your posts. More often than not, it would be, say, maybe 10%. So I think it's really important that you make sure you get those stats and analytics. I can say that in terms of your question, Abby, when we brief influencers, we give quite a specific brief. So we create a mood board and we say, this is do's, these are don'ts. We give them the right hashtags and handles. We give them key messages, but ideally we like them to try and create content that's authentic. And we generally won't pick influencers that won't create the type of content that the brand would be able to reuse, because especially in COVID, influencers have been incredible for brands to use for content. So think about it this way, brands can't do photo shoots, they can't create videos. So we've seen definitely a rise in influencer campaigns where brands are using the influencers to create content for their own socials. And for me personally, I think that this type of content works really well, not only from an organic perspective, but from a paid perspective, because it looks like organic content. It doesn't look really ad-like. And I think brands can sometimes fall prey to doing content which looks really overly produced and it looks like an ad and it's not engaging at all. So I think if you do content with influencers, the benefit is you can actually have real people in there, and real people that have an authentic following. Like Gabrielle said, we do a lot of work with micro and nano influencers. So people who have following under 10,000, under 50,000. You don't need to have people who have followings in the millions. And look, more often than not, say for example, if it's say a bikini influencer, for want of a better phrase, there's probably a lot of men in there who are just looking at them and following them. They're not going to buy the bikini that she's wearing. So I think sometimes if you've got those influencers with smaller followings, they actually have a way more engaged audience. They have time to engage with their audience. Therefore, they're more likely to actually convert as opposed to someone who might have millions and millions of followers. So it's really important that you have some sort of strategy when you're working with influencers, and understand as well that a lot of them are actually, like for them, it's a job and it's time. Like it actually takes a lot of time to build a channel and to keep a channel engaged and to create content. Like further to your point, Olivia, a following doesn't just build overnight. You need to be posting consistently. I have no issues with influencers wanting money for their work because I know firsthand how long it takes to build a channel and how much time it does. And even just like the cost, like if you're a foodie, for example, and you're going out, you've got to go out and go to different restaurants. That costs money. If you're a beauty blogger, you buy products. If you're a fashion blogger, you buy clothes. I think it's really become quite a unique job. And actually, I was like, why didn't I stay in that influencer life? Like I got flown to Champagne, all expenses paid. And I was like, this is insane. Like I need to become an influencer for the rest of my life. I went to Dubai, for example. So you can do some amazing things, but I think it's really important to be really authentic if you are an influencer, because you will have people who listen to what you say. So I can pick a sponsored post a mile away where I just look at that influencer and go, you were literally promoting a competitor 2 weeks ago, and then their competitor 2 weeks before that. So it's, what are you actually doing here? You're just chasing the dollar. And I think it's, as I said at the start, consumers are smart, so they can see that it's like, you clearly aren't using this product. And there's a lot of accounts now that actually expose influencers because they're like, I'm loving this moisturizer. It's like, you're clearly not even putting it on your face. Like nothing came out of the bottle. And I think the influencers actually have to be careful because consumers can see if they're not genuine about the product they're promoting.
But also I think choose an influencer that is reflective of your brand. So again, don't go after the followers, but go after what are you wanting to achieve and who is the brand. For us, our winery in the Hunter Valley, we can go out and we can get sommeliers and everything like that. But we went after weddings. So we got some wedding planners up there to do. So some influential wedding planners up there and doing wine tastings and going for a tour through our venues. So you don't have to be going after the big numbers. And a lot of the time, yes, you do have to pay a lot of times, but look at what contra deals you can do. Contra deals is always a fantastic opportunity to work with, particularly your smaller influencers. They're probably a lot more open to it as well as not being paid, but what can you offer them in return? We don't pay, at my company, we don't pay for influencers because of the assets that we have available and what we can offer in contra deals. But companies that I've worked with, when I worked for Westfield before, we often pay for influencers. So yeah, it just depends what you have to offer.
Yeah, and bringing it back to the startup, I guess, making it relatable for startups, I think there's a distinction between influencers that are paid and people of influence, right? Let's not discount the people of influence. I guess my background, I haven't really paid influencers before because I haven't really worked in like a commercial, private organization. And so I've often worked for not-for-profit or government, right? And in government, you're not allowed to pay influencers. But in terms of Stone and Chalk, for example, we have events and we identify who are those people who we think can help us out to promote this event, who are best aligned to this event. So these people, and we approach them and we ask them for their help, and they're genuine in the way that they would love to help us out. And so when you think of people of influence or influencers, they are also a connection, and they might be not right now, but also later down the track, they might be a really useful business connection to help you out with your startup business.
Yeah, and there's no harm in asking. I always think the worst thing that someone can say is no. So I'd rather get a no than go, oh, I didn't even try and ask. So
I couldn't agree with you more, Gabrielle. Definitely ask, reach out, create those connections. You can often be so pleasantly surprised. Yeah. The other thing, thanks for bringing it back to startup land. I'm curious to know, let's say we've got some startups on the call, and I think we will have, and they really need some help with their digital marketing. What would be and this is for each of you, so I'd like each of you to answer this question. What would be the 3 things that you'd say to them about, and obviously they're a startup, they haven't got huge amounts of money. We've touched on the fact that they might have some nano influencers or some people in their ecosystem who are helping them out. But what would be the 3 pieces of advice you'd give a startup around their digital marketing campaigns?
I might jump in, because when I went to university and then I did my MBA, and there was no single mention of digital. So I feel like I came into the workforce, and that's when it shifted, when I came into the workforce. You know what? YouTube is one of the greatest things in the world. You can learn anything on YouTube. So, do not look at the ratings on things, look at the credibility of them. But YouTube is fantastic. It's amazing what Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn are offering in terms of online courses that are free to join. So TikTok World at the end of September has I think it's a half-day online course that's free to register. So I can drop that link in the chat box but that kind of thing is such a great way just to get a basic understanding of the platform, what you can do with it, and have a play around. Log on to Facebook Business, log on to Google Analytics, and just have a look at the data, see what you can get out of it, your product better than anyone else. What can you can take that information and relate it to your product.
Yeah, excellent. What about you, Liv? You obviously have a lot of founders who speak to you and seek advice. What would be your 3 pieces of advice that you'd give them around their next digital campaign, for example?
Yeah, sure. So number 1 is make sure your things are up to date. Nobody loves a website that doesn't have good contact info on there. Your website is like what we call the center of gravity. That's where people go to find out information about you and your company. So if your LinkedIn profile isn't up to date, if your website isn't up to date, this makes it really hard, and you actually lose customers along the way on that journey. So that's number 1. Number 2, attention to detail. Definitely do not have things like spelling mistakes on there. Tell your story really well. And sometimes when you're looking at a piece of content and you've looked at it 10 times, suddenly you just don't see those mistakes anymore. So give it to somebody, a third party, your wife, your husband, someone completely random, and get them to ask them, like, do you understand what I do? Is this coming out? What do you understand of this? And so get them to check it. So I think that's definitely number 2. Yeah, attention to detail. And then number 3 is very much about starting small. Just start with what you can manage. So it's better to start on 1 channel or 2 channels and post once a month consistently, or send out a newsletter once a month consistently, than just commit to everything at once. And then suddenly people get it, like, they start to expect things from you at a certain time or a certain day, and that's how they connect with you. If you suddenly go out all out and then they don't hear from you again, you've lost customers. So just start with what you can manage and then build on top of that as you go.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about you, Lisa? Have you got 3 top tips you'd give someone who doesn't have a massive budget, they're keen to really get into the digital space and do it? What advice would you give them?
Number 1, no surprises here, get on LinkedIn. So I would say that, especially as a founder, there are so many amazing resources on LinkedIn. So people are posting content, you can learn from incredible individuals who've done amazing things in business. You can network. I got investment through my business, actually, through LinkedIn. You can get business, so like get leads, you can recruit talent. So LinkedIn, 100% amazing. And also it's free. It's like, it doesn't cost you anything. You can just create content yourself. So don't feel like you need to spend a whole lot of money doing that. I understand it's really tough when you don't have a budget. One thing that I've been doing a lot lately is through listening. I actually mentor a lot of people, and a lot of them come to me asking for help with digital marketing. And if they were to engage a traditional agency, then it would be really expensive. So if you can find a good mentor, so whether it's through a platform like Listening, whether it's just online, they're going to change your life. Like, the common thing I hear is that I'll do 30-minute or 1-hour sessions. People will say it would take me literally 40 hours to try and get the information that you just gave me, because you're literally living and breathing it all the time. I've had people say after a session, they've gone away, implemented stuff, and they've had the best month of business they've ever had. And I'm like, why can't I do this for my own company? That's concerning. Having a mentor is so powerful, and I feel like will help you avoid a lot of mistakes, especially in digital marketing, because if you've got limited budget, you don't want to waste a cent. Like, you want every cent to be useful. And also, there are so many people posting free content. So if you don't, the funds for a mentor, follow marketing experts like Gary Vee, for example. He's amazing. He posts like 100 pieces of content a day. I'm like, I'd be lucky to get one piece of content out and then try and drink a cup of tea that hasn't been sitting on my desk for 5 hours or from 5 days ago. So he's like a content machine, but they're constantly pushing out content that tells you what's happening on the algorithms, content creation tips, what's sort of trending when it comes to TikTok and things like that. Make the most of them because they're free and you can learn from the best in the world through their podcasts. You can read their books. There's just so much content out there. Actually, as Gabrielle said, like you can find anything on YouTube. So I would say make sure that you're constantly consuming content and staying up to date with the latest trends, especially if you're looking to execute things yourself. But I think one of the challenging things is, yes, you can learn a lot of things, but there's also, I look at SEO and I go, I wouldn't even touch SEO. Like if anyone paid me, it's like a dark arts. I don't know what's going on there. So there are ways that, yes, you can spend your money wisely and yes, teach yourself some things, but know when to actually pay an expert to do it. Otherwise, you literally are just throwing your money down the toilet. So I think just be smart about making those investment decisions.
Great advice. Now we're almost coming to an end. Lisa, I put in the chat, a couple of people have put in their LinkedIn profiles for you to do a bit of an audit on, just to provide some real-time feedback. So that'll be really interesting. I'm just waiting to hear back to make sure I can share their LinkedIn profile on the screen. So I'll wait for them to get back. In the meantime, what I'd like to know from Gabrielle and Olivia is tell us a time when you have been in your face, but still really polite. And what does that actually mean to you?
Just trying to think of a situation. That's a hard one. It is. I think it's, for me, being in your face doesn't mean a sales pitch. And I have been to, so we had a session, right? It was a networking event that we ran, and it was very much to have a whole bunch of companies or startups on one side meeting investors, right? And it was really for them to meet and get to know each other. It's like speed dating, right? So I think they had 3 minutes each. And it was a great opportunity for companies to talk about the company and stuff. But we then got the feedback from investors, which said some of them were just too sales pitchy. Do you want to know? They wanted to know about, it's really important to talk about, as the CEO, about yourself and the company journey, why it was established, what your solutions are and things like that. But it's also important story behind it. If you're just doing a sales pitch, it doesn't mean that much to investors. So I think it's really important that, you really bring that authentic story through. You don't just suddenly, if you've never met someone before and you have 3 minutes with them, don't just make it a sales pitch, right? Because that doesn't build the connection. So I think in terms of being in your face, it's really important to tell your story, and the why behind everything is super important, and don't make it too salesy.
That's such great advice. And it basically comes back to that point of authenticity, and people probably over the last decade, that sort of brittle, I call it, a sales pitch, it doesn't land with people. People don't want it. They don't like it. They want that follow through. They want that consistency. They want that, the authenticity and that real person. And as you said, the follow up and the more traditional customer service, one of a better description, people still want that. And I think it's really important. Gabrielle, have you got some insights into being in your face and being polite?
Yeah, so a lot of things that we did, we launched a wedding venue. Now, had a very small budget for it, and we didn't know how to get it out there. So we actually just invited anyone that would book a wedding. So wedding planners, event planners, cake makers, local florists to come and see the venue. We put on cheese platters, we put on some champagne, and we collected their contact details. We spoke to them and collected their contact details. So the hardest part is getting someone there to be able to speak to them. But after that, we had all their details and we were able to then do our sales pitch as such. We booked 28 weddings off the back of that in a 3-month period. So you don't have to be directly in their face. You can be after. I always think, start off soft and then go hard. So.
And old-fashioned hospitality, there's nothing more beautiful than getting, it does, a thank you bottle of wine or whatever it might be. And Shouter, who's one of our residents in Sydney, they're doing some lovely things with that. and particularly in this digital space, where you provide this little thank you to people and they get a certain amount, a voucher towards something, whether it's a bunch of flowers or a box of chocolates or a massage, whatever it is. It's actually a really clever way of recognizing contribution and having that nice follow-up and that sort of thing as well.
I think more and more companies are starting to realize they need to move into that kind of thought leadership space. And that comes first, then followed by the sales pitch. People are starting to realize this.
Very definitely. Now, Lisa, I've made you a co-host. Do you want to, we're just going to do a little mini masterclass just to wrap things up. Lisa's going to take us to her LinkedIn page and she's going to share with us some of those top tips, and they're fantastic. So I've already written down the ones I'm going to chat. Go for it, Lisa.
This is going to be so funny if I get like an inappropriate message from someone like coming through as I'm sharing my screen. So apologies. There are some creepy people on LinkedIn. I think the creepiest one I've had is this is actually not even a message. It was on a public post that I'd done. He said he wanted to lick my feet. I was like, mate, this is not the right place.
It's very creepy.
Yeah. I was like, do you? No worries. But no.
At least he was being authentic.
He was very authentic. And I was very authentic.
Get hard on the sales pitch straight away.
I know, I was like, at least warm it up. No, thanks. Anyway, so I thought what might be good is if we go through my profile, because I can criticize myself and it's fine. Not that I'd criticize any of you guys. It's really just more like tips, best practice. So I'm just going to take you through what I think you should be thinking about when you look at your profile. So I can 100% say that a lot of people do not utilize this banner on LinkedIn. In fact, they usually have the generic banner on LinkedIn. And this is, as you can see, prime real estate. So when you land on someone's profile, pretty much the first thing your eye is going to be drawn to is this banner, purely because it's so big, and also the profile photo, because as humans, we're trained to look for faces. So please make sure this is not a serial killer style shot. This is not a toilet selfie. This is not an inappropriate photo. Make sure it's high res. I personally love straight down the barrel of the camera, looking at someone and looking really confident. And the reason is because you're trying to connect with people on a digital platform. If you're not making eye contact, then it's hard to really connect with someone. Make sure that if you're going to do a banner for your brand, and if you've got a startup, 100%, this is amazing. Make sure that you create a banner and also get the rest of your team to have it. So all of my team have either a listing banner or a Cody banner. Make sure it's right aligned, all of the text, because LinkedIn does not optimize for mobile. So if you have that text on this side, it would be hidden behind your headshot when you post on, or when you look at it on mobile. Now you'll notice that my profile has an orange circle around it, and that's because I have creator mode switched on. So actually, I might just try and refresh my screen. So when my screen refreshes, you'll be able to see that my photo will actually, it's not going to do it now. Oh, there we go, plays a video. So I actually have a 20-second video, and that's because I've got what's called creator mode switched on. So that gives you a chance to upload a 20-second video, and you can talk about anything you want to. So you can talk about your latest initiative. You don't really need to introduce yourself, because people who are following you, or people who can see that video, are already first connections. But it's a really nice way, if you don't want to post content all the time, to put a little bit of a personality to your profile. As I mentioned before, this is the headline. So make sure you make the most of it and utilize it to its full potential, because that's what you're going to see as you go through the feed. Now you'll see here, I've got hashtags, and that's because I've got what's called creator mode switched on. So you all actually have access to creator mode. So I would highly recommend you do switch it on. So what it does is it allows you to pick 5 hashtags to show up here. It also moves your following number up to here, and it also changes your main action from connect. So usually when you go into someone's profile, the main action is to connect. The actual CTA will be to follow instead. So it's a really good way for increasing your follows. So in terms of creator mode, why would you want to do it? What it does is it really promotes content on your LinkedIn. And so what I mean by that is it actually pushes content as a priority when you have a look through your page. And I'll show you what I mean about that. So if you're providing services, if you've got this, I think this is still in beta, but if you've got this ability to put some services that you're providing, definitely switch it on, because it means that you'll get alerted when people are in your network looking for your services. So it's a really good way to get some BD. Now, this is your dashboard. So people don't see this, only you see this. So see here, this is creative mode. So you can actually switch it on and off. And I would definitely recommend after this call, you can go and have dinner if you want to, but at some stage, have a look at creative mode and switch it on, because what it'll do is actually change the order of your page. So previously in the past, straight away, as soon as you finish looking up here, you would see someone's about section, so their bio. Whereas this, what creative mode does, it actually promotes the content that you're creating. So this section here is what is called the featured section. I can pretty much guarantee most people on this call will not have utilized this section at all. They either don't have it switched on or have no idea what it is. And it's really, as you can see, I hate to say prime real estate, but I can't think of a better term, but it is prime real estate because it's so bloody big. So as you can see here, you can actually post content on here. So you can post things that you're doing. I've got my company show reel on here. I've got like award thing that I want. I've got my business that I want to promote. So what you can do is actually upload content. So you can actually say use this plus button. You can link to one of your actual posts. So you can promote you can have your most popular posts up here or things that you want to promote. You can link to articles that you've published on LinkedIn. You can literally link off to your website. You can upload photos, documents, and presentations. So this is an amazing opportunity to put your show reel here, to put case studies here, to put a link to your website here. And it's going to be really big, because if you have your website in your bio, people can't click through. If you have your website in your headline, people can't click through, whereas people can click through here. So definitely make sure that you're maximizing the featured section. It's absolutely real estate gold. Dare I say that again? So the activity section is something that's very interesting, because previously, if you do not have creator mode switched on, then the activity just shows your actual activity. So it will show when you've posted content, but it will also show when you've commented on someone else's post, for example. So the issue with that is, say, for example, my most recent activity was I was commenting on someone else's post. So what would show, and you'll be able to see this when you go into your activity section, if you don't have creator mode switched on, is it will actually show my activity commenting on someone else's post. So when you click here, you would be taken to someone else's post as opposed to going to your content that you've shared. So here you see only the things that I've shared as opposed to me commenting on other people's posts. So it's a really great way to actually drive people and drive traffic to your content. So in terms of, then it will scroll down to your about section. I can pretty much guarantee that most people have a really boring about section. If they even have it at all, they might have one line in there. Do not waste this, because it's a really great way to connect with people. So you'll be able to see the first 3 lines. So make sure it's quite clickbaity. I saw someone's LinkedIn bio the other day, and it was something like, I was like, Lisa is a really efficient practitioner. I was like, I'm absolutely not going to click see more, because that sounds really boring already. No offense to that person. But mine's obviously very much for my brand. So I've got emojis and things like that. But as you can see, it's quite easy to digest. It's not big chunks of text. I find a lot of people put really big chunks of text on. I don't know about anyone else on this call, but I'm not reading any of that. I can't be bothered. My attention span is that of a gnat. It's like very short. So make sure that you're really talking about yourself here. And actually, that's another point. Make sure that this is about you. Don't have it talk about your business or the company that you work for. That's what the business page is for. This is really about you. So talk about what gets you up in the morning, what gets you really excited to go about your day. Why did you start the company? Why, are you passionate about X, Y, Z? Are there any interesting facts you can share? This is really all about you. And especially for the women on the call, do not be shy about talking about your achievements or what you stand for, anything like that. This is really an opportunity for you to actually connect with people, and you might find that you have something in common. So I personally love to write it from the first person. I did this, I'm passionate about this. Some people write it from the third person. Lisa did this, Lisa achieved that. I find it a little bit like you can't connect with the person as much. So I feel it's a lot stronger when you talk in the first person for bios. So I might actually, while I'm on this, so make sure you also fill out your experience section. You can actually add links and things like that now. So as you can see, I've got images that my agency might have created there. So it makes it pop a little bit. I'm actually just, while we're on the topic of, I'm just going to talk about content. This is going to be really embarrassing because I've got really bad content at the moment. So this is just some ideas for content creation. So this is just something that I've got acknowledged for recently. This is the talk. This is a poll. Now, the reason why I'm doing polls on LinkedIn is because they're pushing the reach really far. And I don't know why. So as you can see, that reached 12,000 people, which is like 12,000 people have now just seen my brand, and I've just done a poll. So I didn't even have to leave the comfort of my house. I didn't even have to put makeup on. I just did a poll. So they're really pushing polls at the moment. So if you're looking to get more active on LinkedIn and you want a quick win, do a poll. This is actually just, I repurposed this video from TikTok. So this is just talking about tips on how to get my top 5 tips for getting over X amount of views on LinkedIn in 12 months. People love lists. People are a massive fan of short, sharp lists. They don't want to have to work too hard for content. This is me just filming my phone, as you can see, not great content. This is a podcast that I do called Listening. So we interviewed Matt Barry, one of the co-founders, the founder of Freelancer. We've interviewed like Gary Vaynerchuk, co-founder of Netflix, Mark Randolph, Grant Cardone. So this is something that I'm using as content creation to promote Listening. So we're, talking to the world's best business people. So I use that as content to share. So if you are doing content marketing and you have a podcast, make sure you can share it. That's definitely really easy to do. This is me just talking about, I don't know what I'm talking about there. This is a text post. This is another poll, actually. So this is an interesting one. So this poll was interesting because it appeals to anyone, because it's just asking what time do you get out of bed. So if you do quite a general poll, as you can see, I had a lot of votes that reached 41,000 people. That's insane. I'm like, who's doing this poll? Who's looking at this poll? It's crazy. But as you can see, like the power of the reach of this, just posting a piece of content, that took literally like 5 minutes for me to do, and I've just got my brand in front of 41,000 people. That's insane. Like, you can't ignore that kind of reach for your brand. And if you were to pay for that from a paid perspective, that's going to cost you a hell of a lot of money. But if you just did a post for free, that's all of a sudden like you've got that huge opportunity. So definitely do that. Another poll. I'm clearly loving the polls at the moment on LinkedIn.
All right, I'm just wondering, we're coming to an end. We've only got one. Sorry, no, it's okay, Lisa. It's brilliant. I think there's quite a lot of information there that people are going to be taking away. I think I've just put in the chat that we always do a soft wind down just for 15 minutes, just because people have other. So we started off at the beginning of this session talking about your favorite brand. I would like to conclude with, what is your favorite platform? And just a quick 30-second why. So platform why. Lisa, you're on screen. What's your favorite platform that you use in your digital marketing campaigns?
1,000% LinkedIn. I just think it's the people that I've had the chance to meet on there. It's like honestly changed my life, and there's still organic reach on the platform. So as you can see by my profile, I didn't pay for a cent of that reach. So definitely get on there, especially if you're looking to build your brand and your personal brand in the business world.
And thank you for that mini masterclass. It was brilliant. I actually learned a lot, so I really appreciate it personally, but I'm sure a lot of people on the call would have been the same. Liv, what's your favorite platform and why?
So it's a toss-up between LinkedIn, mostly because it's the most effective, and Twitter, surprisingly. Actually, the more I use Twitter for work, so it doesn't work for every industry. It's very targeted for very specific industries, just like cybersecurity. But the more I use it for work, the more I actually find it's a bit of a news source for me. So I actually find some really interesting news articles on Twitter. And yeah, it's unusual. I would never thought I'd be reading a newspaper on Twitter, but it's cool.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say Twitter. I just thought you were such a Twitter person, just because of that authentic news feed and because you love reading and
I never
learning.
Used to like it.
Oh, okay.
I learn a lot from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gabrielle, sorry, Liv, you finish.
You have to be succinct, and I'm like plain English, succinct queen. So for me, if you can say more with less words, absolutely go for it.
Fantastic. And Gabrielle, what about you? Your favorite platform?
I'd like to add something new, but it's LinkedIn. I can't go past it. And probably not from a personal, I must say I learned a lot from Lisa just then, and I'm going to be doing a lot of updates to my personal LinkedIn page. But from a business perspective for the different brands, there's just so much you can do and so much reach you can get. And then one of our most successful, we actually launched a corporate hamper business purely on LinkedIn by targeting HR teams through direct messages on LinkedIn. So there's so many things you can do with it. When I started at Mulfer a couple of years ago, we had a LinkedIn page with 34 followers. And I just thought, we do need to start getting our name out there, because we were looking for investors at the time. And just in the last 18 months, we've grown to over 6,000. Now, I haven't spent a cent doing anything. That is just sharing updates about our business. So it's a fantastic tool.
Organic reach and sharing, and as Liv touched on before, that thought leadership and also that authenticity. Recruitment.
Finding staff members on LinkedIn is exceptional.
So I would like to say a big warm thank you to Lisa, Olivia and Gabrielle for their insights this evening. They have been thoroughly on point and really inspiring. I think everyone's taken a lot from this event, and thank you everyone on the call for joining us on a Wednesday evening. We look forward to seeing you at future Pivot events, and everybody take care. It's a weird time, but great to connect in this forum. And like this, I think it's helping everyone cope in lockdown in Sydney and Melbourne, and best wishes. And we look forward to seeing you at a future event. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.